Welcome to the Fourth and Fast Break Podcast. I'm your humble, delight, and always blessed host, Joshua McCain. And on today's Monday, August the 10th edition of the Fourth and Fast Break Podcast, I'll be talking about the NFL preseason. This week, we start off with week one, starting Thursday. And I just want to go through some rookies to watch and some position battles going on throughout the NFL that I think are some of the most intriguing ones. Starting with the rookies, we know the top five picks. We know Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for the Raiders, David Bailey, the edge rusher for the Jets, Jeremiah Love, the running back for the Cardinals, Carnell Tate, the receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and then Arvell Reese rounding out the top five for the New York Giants, and those were the top five picks. But we have some guys later on in the draft. A guy that I've really been hearing a lot about, and I thought he was really good in college, Casey Concepcion. He's getting a lot of buzz. Can he become? A lot of people are saying number two already, but can he become one of those that number one guy by the time the season ends? Yeah, we know Jerry Jeudy's over there, but the Browns, they're still looking for a future at that number one receiver position. And I think KC Concepcion could definitely be a guy like that. So I will be watching him closely throughout the preseason so far. Omar Cooper Jr., receiver from Indiana. He was an older guy, but he put up a lot of big numbers the last couple of years at Indiana. And last season, he was undisputed number one receiver for them. Fernando Mendoza says a lot of great things about him. The Jets are saying he's been really good this training camp so far. Omar Cooper Jr., I think, has a chance, just like KC Concepcion. By the time this season ends, he could be – probably wouldn't be a number one because it's against Garrett Wilson, but he can be a high-end, number two over there with the Jets, and that would really help out Geno Smith and or Cade Klubnik or whoever is starting by the time the season ends. Another guy I'm watching, Jadarian Price, running back, came out of Notre Dame, and he's with the Seattle Seahawks now. He's basically in a battle with Zach Charbonnet. No more Kenneth Walker. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs. So Jadarian Price, I believe, he was one of the upper tier running backs. He's just played on the same team as Jeremiah Love, who was the undisputed best running back in college football the last two seasons, and the best running back coming out this season. That's why he's picked so high with the Arizona Cardinals. But Jadarian Price, I think he's a running back that's sooner or later will be the number one guy. And I'm looking forward to what he does in the preseason because I think he gets a heavy workload because I don't think Zach Charbonnet plays a whole lot. And I think Price won't play that much, but the first two games or so, I think he'll get a nice workload with the Seahawks. And then another guy, Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon from the Philadelphia Eagles. They got him out of USC. They jumped the Pittsburgh Steelers in the infamous Steelers were thinking they were going to get him. They jumped them, pick up Makai Lemon. No more A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is the number one receiver over there, but Makai Lemon, in the preseason, I believe he gets a lot of snaps as a outside on the X receiver spot. How does he do in that position? Because he probably won't be playing with Jalen Hurts in the preseason, but how does he do against the number twos, being the number one guy in the preseason? And how much do they, integrate him into the offense? Another receiver that I was looking for is kind of receiver heavy, but Malachi Fields from the New York Giants. And we'll talk about the Giants a little bit later. Malachi Fields came from Virginia, transferred to Notre Dame for his senior season. Big target, 6'4" guy. Had a pretty solid season with Notre Dame. I thought he could have won the second round. He ended up going the third round. He will get a lot of playing time, I believe, in the preseason. And what I saw at Notre Dame and Virginia, I think this guy has a chance to really be a top-tier receiver in his career. He has all the goods. He's tall. He's a guy that he's shifty. He's a shifty type of guy for his size. So I'm definitely looking at him in this preseason and how he does getting the snaps out there. So now I want to get into the position battles that I'm looking forward to this coming up season, in the preseason, and who gets the spots week one for the NFL season. And then start off with the Miami Dolphins. And the Miami Dolphins, team going through a rebuild. They've gotten rid of Tua Tagovailoa. They ate the price tag on him. They got rid of Tyreek Hill. They traded Jalen Waddle. So it's a team that's coming in with a brand new coaching staff, brand new head coach in Jeff Hafley, brand new quarterback in Malik Willis. Still have Devon Achane, but I want to look at their receiver position. Who becomes the number one guy for them? Now, they went and got Jalen. They went and signed Jalen Tolbert from the Dallas Cowboys, who had been a number 3 for the last couple of years with the Cowboys, and basically got pushed out once George Pickens came in. Malik Washington coming off a 46 reception, 317 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He was a number 3 for the Dolphins the last couple of years. Does he become a number 1 for them? They did add Tutu Atwell from the Los Angeles Rams, who has always been a slot guy, a smaller guy, but Tutu usually makes plays in big games a lot of times. You'll see Tutu Atwell. Next thing you know, he's beating you for a 50, 60-yard bomb. The Miami Dolphins, in my opinion, who becomes the number 1 over there, you would think it would be Jalen Tolbert because he's been groomed in Dallas to become a number 1 receiver. However, that was never going to happen with CeeDee Lamb and then getting George Pickens, who now they're 1A, 1B. So Jalen Tolbert, odd man out, but coming from Dallas, he's been a really productive receiver for them. It's a guy that after 2024, a lot of fans were looking at him a little sideways. But 2025, this past season, he came up and he played fairly decent for what he was. And like I said, Miami believes right now, hearing from their training camp and their beat reporters that he's a guy that could be the number 1 receiver, could be a go-to guy for Malik Willis. And then speaking of Malik Washington. He's always been he was a guy last year that had to step into a different role because Tyreek Hill went down early in the season with that gruesome leg injury, and Malik Washington came up, and I think he had a pretty solid season: 46 receptions, 317 yards. It's not a bad year, but that's number 3 stats. That's a number 3 guy. Number 2 guy, you're expecting more of the 70 catches, 65 to 70 catch range. 600 yards to 800 yards with 4 to 8 touchdowns. So expecting more of that. So can he be? He's a guy that they're all starting over the new system because there's new coaching staff over there. So he really won't have a leg up there. So they're basically all starting over. And Tutu Atwell, I don't think he's ever going to be considered a number 1 type guy. Can he be? Can he be an option as he's the security blanket for Malik Willis? Malik Willis wants to, find him out in the flat, get him over the middle, deep down the field. But I think the guy who becomes the number 1 option for the Miami Dolphins is Jalen Tolbert, because like I said, coming out of South Alabama, going into the Cowboys, they thought of him, fairly highly. Started off early in his career, and one thing, happened or another thing happened, and it just didn't really work out in terms of what they expected or what they thought he could be. But Jalen Tolbert has all the tools to be a number 1 receiver, at least for the Miami Dolphins. And I think this year he becomes the number 1 guy going into the year. And I would even, say he wouldn't be the security blanket because I think that's Devon Achane, but he'll be a guy that's on the outside. Malik Willis would look for a lot. Now, my second position battle that I'm looking forward to for the season, coming out of the preseason, and that's probably the biggest one for a lot of people, is who is the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback? Now, that's between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. We know Deshaun Watson has been out for almost 2 years with that torn Achilles he had in 2024. Shedeur Sanders went from 3rd string to being the 1st string quarterback the rest of the way last season. Like I said, it's both of these names are volatile for different reasons. Deshaun Watson because of stuff that he did off the field about 5 or 6 years ago, and then Shedeur Sanders because of the name and a lot of people would say antics of what surrounds Shedeur Sanders. And I read an article from Zach Jackson, the Cleveland Browns writer for The Athletic, and they were saying that Deshaun Watson may have taken the lead over Shedeur Sanders. According to if you look at this past Saturday's practice, Deshaun Watson was up first with the number one offense for the second straight day Saturday and ran exclusively with the starters. By previous rotation, Saturday would have been Shedeur Sanders' day with the number one offense. So he got 2 straight days. And he also said the change is notable for multiple reasons. Through the spring and the first 8 days of camp, Watson and Sanders alternated days with number one offense and with a near 50-50 split of total reps. However, that was before Saturday. And the previous 4 days, Sanders, was the lead man. So I don't know how much I can take from that because maybe Monken is just trying to see a couple things here. Just trying to see, hey, okay, 1 good day from Deshaun. Let's see if it comes on to 2 good days. Or he's trying to see, if I put Deshaun here, how's Shedeur going to respond? Is he going to pout? Is he going to be angry? And then vice versa. If, Shedeur gives me a good day here, is Deshaun going to pout? Is he going to cry about it? Is he going to be mad? And so he might, and that could be a thing, or it could be Deshaun maybe having an upper hand. And I believe Deshaun Watson is the starter this year going into week 1. And it's only because I think the Browns want it to be Shedeur Sanders. I really do. I think they want it to be Shedeur. I think they want Shedeur to be the starter for this team. But I heard something from Chris Sims. He was saying a lot of times teams go into seasons and they allow guys who probably shouldn't be starting to start off early in the year, especially for a team that's rebuilding or, they're not that good. They're young. They're not that talented. Just to see, okay, we're not going to throw the guy we want starting out early because if we do that and it looks bad, we're going to go to the guy that we really don't even want to play. So I think Deshaun Watson, I think he gets that, not because he's not good, but I think he gets that because, a young team, not a whole lot of talent, especially offensively. And the first 6-7 games to 8 games, it won't look really good. So we can then say, the crowd all want Shedeur coming in. We get Shedeur in. We get the fans coming back. We get them, applauding. They're ready for Shedeur. Now we let the real starter start the last 9 or 10 games. That's what I believe is going to end up happening. Who should be the starter? I really think it's Shedeur Sanders. And it's because Deshaun Watson has not shown us, since he got traded to the Cleveland Browns, he has not shown us a lick of what he was in Houston. Not even a glimpse. It has been just really, really bad. And I don't see that changing this year, coming off of torn Achilles almost 2 seasons ago. 2 seasons ago, almost 2 full years ago. So I think that should go to Shedeur. However, start off with Deshaun. If it's bad, like we all expected, then you put Shedeur in by week 6 or 7, and go on about that. Because I just think Shedeur, last season I watched him, he just gave the offense a different like pop. He gave the offense something none of the other quarterbacks, Dylan Gabriel, Joe Flacco, could do, and that's just get a chance to make big plays. Like, he's going to do some bad things, but hold on to the ball. But he's going to hold on the ball enough times to where one of those things are going to pop for a big play. And the Shedeur Sanders, he just gives the Browns, big play ability, big play chances. Even though, like I said, he has a lot to work on. I know the Browns are looking for at least, some big plays. And he got guys who can, got speed, and Jerry Jeudy and Casey Concepcion. So that's what I believe is going to happen with the Cleveland Browns situation. Now, another position battle I'm looking at this preseason, who's going to be cornerback 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs? They just traded Trent McDuffie, who's been their number 1 corner the last 3 or 4 seasons. So you trade him, you end up, you had a top 5 pick, and then you got a first-round pick out of that. You drafted Mansour Delaney from LSU, who was coming in the best corner in the draft, consensus best corner, according to scouts and all. You re-signed L'Jarius Sneed, Christian Fulton is still there. Noah Williams is going into his, I think, second year. And he's been getting a big raves in training camp, how he's been playing, and he's ready to jump into that role if he needs to start. And in my opinion, I think this has to go to when you talk about corner, it has to go to the two most talented. So when you look at other positions, you can say, well, what guy, you go to quarterback and you say, well, what guy can, lead this team well, he knows his offense, he's going to make sound decisions. It doesn't usually always go when it comes to a battle. It doesn't always go to the most talented guy. Well, when it comes to corner, it has to go to the most talented guy. If not, it's going to not look well at all. And that's why I believe Mansour Delane will be one of the starting cornerbacks on the outside, and Noah Williams will be the other one because they both have good size. They're both young guys. I think L'Jarius Sneed is a guy. If he does play on the outside, it'll be spot action coming in. Mansour Delaney, like I said, you picked a top 5 pick on him, well, a top 10 pick on him, to be your starter fairly soon, and I think he's already the most talented guy they have over there. But then Noah Williams, was a guy that led, he was top 5 in picks at Cal in his senior year. So those two guys on the outside, I think they are the number ones for the Kansas City Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed has a chance to, like I said, he knows that system. And like I said, the Chiefs have a lot of magic over there. Spagnuolo has a lot of magic, so he might get back to looking like L'Jarius Sneed was before he went to the Titans. The last game he played with the Chiefs, he had locked up Tyreek Hill in that playoff game, that cold wild card game that they ended up blowing out the Miami Dolphins. Now, my next battle, I'm going to go to New York and talk about the Giants receivers. And the receiver battle is not really a who's starting type battle. It's more of who's going to make the roster, because right now, you hear from the Giants beat reporters, there's 5 locks. There's Malik Neighbors, who will be back week 1, supposedly from his ACL injury this past year. Darius Slayton, Calvin Austin, Darnell Mooney, and Malachi Fields, who I talked about earlier. Those are 5 guys they're expecting to be locks for the season. Expectingly, because Calvin can do things special teams wise, and then he gives you that big playability down the field. Darius Slayton has always been consistent, just got paid. Darnell Mooney might be one of the guys on the edge, but he's a vet. He's a guy that has a lot of. He can work the middle of the field well. Then Malachi Fields, your rookie, of course, you're most likely not going to release him, a 3rd round pick, unless things just went really bad. So that leaves Braxton Berrios, Juju Smith-Schuster, Isaiah Hodgins, and then, of course, the return of OBJ. Now, Odell Beckham Jr. has been saying that he's feeling good. He's in great shape. And the reports out of there, he looks like he's in fairly good shape. He looks like he's out there, and I saw he did a side-by-side with Malik Neighbors. They were going through drills, and he looked like like he could still play. Braxton Berrios, he's most likely on the outside looking in. He's most likely a camp body. Juju Smith-Schuster, more than likely a camp body. Isaiah Hodgins is a guy that, really to say probably is the guy that's fighting with OBJ for that last receiver spot. Not saying they're going to be the 6th receiver, but, like on the depth chart, but that last spot of who makes the team at receiver, he's fighting with OBJ for that spot. And to be honest with you, I think biases aside and what they are aside, career aside, I think Isaiah Hodgins probably ends up beating him out for that spot, because Isaiah Hodgins, he was already playing there with New York last season, a couple seasons ago as well. So he's been there. I know they have new regime there. I know it's new guys there, but he's been there. He's got his made plays for the Giants, and he's younger than OBJ. And I think the Giants will end up going with the youth over the OBJ experiment. But OBJ could make the team, but I think it's going to come down between him and Isaiah Hodgins. I think Hodgins ends up beating him out for that spot, that sixth spot. Another interesting camp battle, and it's a battle that's the names don't sound that great, but it's going to Green Bay, and who are going to be the two starting cornerbacks for the Green Bay Packers. Now, you went out and signed Benjamin St-Juste from the LA Chargers this past season. He played there, special team guy, but with this cornerback room, he can be a starting cornerback. Carrington Valentine is back. Keyshawn Nixon is back. And then you drafted in second round Brandon Cisse, who had a lot of, some scouts out there that said they had late first round grades on him. Like I said, in the previous video, South Carolina has put out some really good corners this past 4 or 5 seasons. Brandon Cisse and Benjamin St-Juste, the last 2 practices, that being today and Sunday, or Saturday, excuse me, they had been going out and being the starting group. So it could be a Cleveland thing where they're just swapping them out, maybe see how they react, yada, yada, yada. Who knows? The clips that I've seen, the one-on-ones from Keyshawn Nixon is getting beat, but I don't really take too much into one-on-ones a lot of the times, especially in the open field. What I did not like was a clip out there where Matthew Golden went deep and caught it over the shoulder going to the pylon, and Nixon just stopped on the rep. That can't happen. We saw it last year where he just stopped on the rep against the Cowboys, and Tolbert, had came back and got the ball, that deep pass in overtime. Dak threw it up, and Keyshawn Nixon just stopped playing. That can't happen. That can't continue to happen. That happened twice last year. So it's almost like, do you care? And it seems like he's a guy that will quit on reps. So Brandon Cisse, I think he's always had the inside track to being the outside guy. They just had to see it from him in the training camp. And then this preseason, of course, I think they want to see it from him. This coming up Thursday, the Packers play the Steelers in week 1. Does Brandon Cisse go out and start? Is it Keyshawn Nixon? Is it, Carrington Valentine, Benjamin St-Juste? It'll be interesting to see. But I think Brandon Cisse this preseason will get a lot of action, get a lot of run. If he's healthy and to be out there, he's going to get a lot of run, and they're going to see what these corners can do. They're going to keep seeing what they can do in practice, of course. But I think the corners will play a little bit more than some other starters the first 2 preseason games. The Packers have a joint practice with the Cardinals week 3. I don't think it's going to be really any starters playing week 3. They'll use that joint practice as a warm-up for week 1 versus the Minnesota Vikings. But I think who ends up beating in those, I think those 2 outside guys are going to be just, 2 dogs, 2 guys who just really, really wants it. And I think Carrington Valentine, he has so much confidence, and I think he's only one on the outside guy. And then Brandon Cisse, he's on the other outside. So I think those are going to be the 2 outside corners for the Green Bay Packers this season. And then we go to another battle that has been very hot and a hot topic. It's the Minnesota Vikings quarterback battle between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. Now, before they had a practice Sunday night, I believe. It seemed like Kyler Murray had the inside track, but then, according to beat reporters for the Minnesota Vikings, Kyler Murray has had some struggles the last couple practices that the Minnesota Vikings have had. So then it seems like it goes back to square one. And with this battle, it's if Kyler Murray is not that much better than J.J. McCarthy, you start J.J. McCarthy. And that makes sense. Because this is a tad bit different. I think it's a lot different from the Cleveland spot, because when I said about Cleveland, you might start the guy you don't want to start early on just to get the guy, everybody actually wants to start, after the season's not going too well. But this one right here, you pick J.J. McCarthy in the first round. He was your first round draft pick. He's a guy that you're expecting it to be your quarterback of the future. You're expecting to be your franchise quarterback. You use high draft capital for him. This needs to work out. This is a pick that gets you fired. gets a lot of people fired. Their GM already got fired. So it's a pick that just needs to work out. Like, we have to find a way to make this work. And if Kyler Murray's not a whole lot better than J.J. McCarthy, then J.J. McCarthy has to be the starter. Because it makes no sense to put, in this situation, it makes no sense to put J.J. on the bench and have Kyler in there, and it looks, fairly the same. I would take J.J. struggles because I can see a little bit. I can see over the horizon. Then Kyler struggles because if Kyler struggles now, he's going into year 7, 6? Was it 8? Year 8? Well, no, I'm sorry, it's not year 8. This is year 8. Yeah, he got there in 2019. Yeah, so this is year 8. His struggles in year 8 and J.J. McCarthy's struggles in year 3 are two different things. This is it's really year 2 because he redshirted his first year in 24 because he was hurt. J.J. McCarthy, this is his second full season in the NFL. This is going to be Kyler Murray's 8th full season. I'm going to take J.J. McCarthy's struggles over Kyler Murray's struggles from year 8 and year 2. So I think I don't know who's going to win this battle. My prediction is Kyler Murray because I think Kyler Murray he's a guy that he's a vet. He's a guy that if he gets the right coaching, because we saw it in Arizona when it was looking good and he was an MVP candidate to start off that 2021 season. We know the good Kyler Murray and the peak of what Kyler Murray can be, and if he can get to the 2021's version of Kyler Murray with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Tyler Hockenson, that's a big thing for the Minnesota Vikings. So I think J.J. McCarthy wins this battle. I think Kyler Murray I think we've seen the peak of Kyler Murray, and I think J.J. McCarthy ends up winning this battle because Kyler Murray did not separate himself to the level that he should if he wants to win this battle. But the run game is going to have to be better this season. Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, they have to be better. The offensive line have to be better at moving guys. If the running game's not any better, then J.J. McCarthy is going to be all on his shoulders or Kyler Murray's shoulders. So the run game does have to get better as well as the quarterback play. And then my last quarterback battle that I want to watch throughout this preseason and how this is going to shake out is the one in Atlanta between Tua Tagovailoa and Michael Penix. Now, the Falcons aren't just going to come out and say they made the wrong move by drafting Michael Penix because the guy that was, there starting before Michael Penix, he didn't do too much good either in Kirk Cousins. So having a backup option wasn't a bad idea. Maybe the backup option that they got was the bad idea. And now you bring in Tua Tagovailoa, who just got cut from the Miami Dolphins this past season, and a historic cap hit that he had with the Dolphins. And he has a lot to prove. And I know he wants to prove himself in Atlanta. Like I said, Atlanta has a top tier running back. They have a really good receiver, Drake London. I like their receiving core. They have Lamade Zaccheaus, Jahan Dotson that's got there, Drake London, and Zachariah Branch, who came from the Georgia Bulldogs, started out at USC, transferred to Georgia, and I think in this year, he's going to be he's a guy that his speed is it's a big weapon for him. So they have guys, and Kyle Pitts, who coming up for the best year of his career. So they have guys they can get the ball to. I think the offensive line is really solid. Atlanta has a chance. I think if they get just solid QB play this season, Atlanta has a chance to run away with that division. Like that, if the QB play it doesn't just have to be Matt Ryan 2016, but if it can be just solid, a quarterback that goes out there, doesn't throw more than 8 interceptions, gets you 25 to 29 touchdowns, 3,700 to 4,200 yards, smart with the football, can make some plays. This team can win 12 games. They can go 12-5 because I think they have some of the best young talent on defensive side of the ball. With that secondary, Xavier Watts, you still have Jesse Bates, two Terrell brothers at cornerback. The linebackers are really good. D-line, James Pierce is back. It's a team with a lot of young guys at all these positions. And if they can get the quarterback right, if Tua or Michael Penix, if they can get this right, I think it's something that they can win 12 games and run away with the NFC South. Now, when it comes to this battle, who wins it, in my opinion, I'm going to go off of what I said about the Vikings. If Tua is not just that much better than Michael Penix, then Michael Penix should win this job. And both of these guys are kind of the same, not just because they're left-handed quarterbacks. They're guys who they have limited arms. The arm strength is limited. I think Michael Penix is more talented with the ball, throwing the ball down the field or throwing the ball, wherever. This past season, it was just bad, and I didn't see the progression that I thought I would see from Michael Penix and a lot of other people, that being the Falcons, because they went out and got Tua Tagovailoa. But then Tua, he's also a guy that, and his offensive coordinator for the Falcons is a really good offensive coordinator. I believe that's Zach Robinson, who spent time with with Sean McVay and the Rams. He's a guy that they can dial him up and can get him in good spots. So I think in this competition, I think Michael Penix ends up winning out because Tua hasn't really been healthy last couple of years, and even coming into training camp, Penix hadn't been healthy either. But I think this is one where, kind of just like Minnesota, I don't think Tua he doesn't separate himself enough to say, okay, we're just going to give up on our first round draft pick and we're going to go with the other guy. So I think Michael Penix ends up winning this one. But these battles are definitely something to watch during the preseason and continuing training camp, and keeping up with these updates from these beat reporters on Twitter, online, on these articles in The Athletic and everything else. So that is my episode for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned some things that I told or said. And we'll be back again with another episode talking about the NBA and my top players going into next season. And we'll start off with point guards. But until then, take care of yourself and each other.